Alright guys, so I got the two replacement panels I wanted for the two-door sedan. This is the lower brace that the body mounts basically go on, sandwich on. And then this is the 10 or 11 inches of the rear trunk floor. But this piece, this brace, has to go in like that. And then all this will have to have holes punched in it or drilled in it, and I'll have to plug weld this on too. But anyway, I will put this on just like factory by plug welding it. And anyway, this is, I wanted these two parts for the main reason is all the measurements and the angles and everything is already, I don't have to try to hand fab all this stuff. If you just did something straight across here, I'm not saying it wouldn't work, but the way this is made with a certain height and everything for your body mount to go here, I just didn't want to have to go in there and try to fab all this stuff, you know what I mean? But anyway, at least it'll have its factory style brace in it and everything. So you have these lowered, it's like an indented section right here and here, and that's for the body mount cushions, so your bolt will come through because this is upside down. But this goes on like this, so your body mount bolt will drop through there. And anyway, they don't pre-cut it out for the spare tire well, but I'm going to be building all of the trunk floor and the inner floors of the car, trans-tunneling all by hand. And I'm going to roll some nice beads in it, make it look really artistic looking, and still be structurally sound. And I'm probably going to end up trimming this right over that. And then the piece I put in will be shaped out around all this stuff perfectly so I can weld it to it. But from about here back, all this is going in the car. This car, the trunk floor is not terrible, but I know when this up in here is blasted, it's probably gonna have some Swiss cheese in it. I don't want the spare tire well. I'm gonna be putting a battery back here, and I'm most likely gonna be doing a fuel cell. And if I do a fuel cell, it's gonna be sunk down in the trunk floor. So all in the subfloor, I'll build all the structure subfloor first, and it'll have the spot where the fuel cell will go in and bolt in, and then I'll basically sheet metal around it. Alright guys, it is Sunday. I did not get to work on anything yesterday. Friday was my wife and I's 32nd wedding anniversary, so we ended up going to Tulsa and messing around over there and having a good dinner and all that kind of stuff. So it was kind of nice, just took the day off with her and everything. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I might just go ahead and try to work on the chassis a little bit more off the two-door post, but I've got to do some car shuffling as usual. So I've got this one, that one, and this one to move. So I'll probably move them over into the front yard, and then I'll wheel this around so I can get it under here, the shade. And I think I'm going to go ahead and try to remove the rest of the body. Alright, so I did some car shuffling here, and I'm kind of wishing now I'd have backed this thing up here. And I still may have to. I'm not sure if my cords are long enough to reach for the plasma cutter. But first order of business is going here, and I'm going to have to sand this edge right here and try to find the spot welds, and then drill them out and get that removed, because I'm saving that. That's going back in the other car. Alright guys, here is something on a Tri-5 Chevy that some people may not know. So from the factory, on your tail pan back here at the back of the car, if you've ever drug one of these in, your first one, it may not have had anything in here, but you've seen how pinched this is. See how these are all bent in. So what goes here is a seal, and I mean, there's not much left of this one, but it goes down in there, and it kind of, when you put your bumper on, this like seals any basic open spot from being able to stick your finger down behind the bumper. What that does is that when you're driving your car down the roads or whatever, even down a dirt road would be worse, all the dust and stuff that comes up hits the back of that bumper, and that bumper's curved, so it acts like a airfoil, I guess you'd call it. I don't know if that's proper terminology. That's what we'll go with since I'm a redneck. It comes and hits that bumper and then goes up through there, and if you don't have that seal, it gets all over the back of your trunk lid and everything. So I didn't install one on my hardtop because it's ugly to look at, and I was going to put mirrors under the car and it just didn't look nice. So I didn't install one, and I am getting a ton of dust down in here from driving the car and it coming up and getting on there. And it's, you know, some of it will wrap around anyway around the sides, but it's really bad not having that on there. So there's supposed to be a bumper to body seal, and you would stuff it down in there, and then that's how they did it from the factory. They just squeezed that, pinched it closed, and that's what held it in place. So these usually rust out. I mean, it's usually a mess. This one's actually not too bad a shape, so I'm going to go ahead and reuse it to save money because it's here. I don't mind spending, you know, a whole bunch of hours in it because, you know, if you don't have a bunch of money, you have to work with what you got. And this is more of the restoration side of things, other than just opening a catalog and buying new stuff. So what you would do is go in there and remove what's left of the seal, which I've still got some left in here, and what I'm doing is trying to get a flat blade under there and just, you know, dig it out of there. But at that point, I'll go back and get some thin flat jaw pliers that I have. I'm going to go back and pull this out, and I'm going to overbend it past it just a little bit. Like, I'm going to pull it out a little bit past all of these. And then I've got a dolly that I'll stick down in there, and then I'll use my flat-ended hammer and re-dolly that straight. And then at that point, when the new seal, you get your brand new seal and you go to put it in there, you can actually glue it in there if you want to, because doing it this way, you know, with modern urethane paints and acrylic enamels or whatever, it'll crack your paint, and once your paint cracks, you know, you get moisture in between the layers of the paint, and the crack turns into a bubble, or, you know, basically delaminates the paint. So I would recommend gluing it in there, but you can do it however you want. I just thought I'd throw that out there, guys. This is supposed to have a seal pinched down in there, so now you know. All right, guys, so I have a dolly that I've used before, and this is just an old crappy one, and I've always used it, but I had to put it in there at an angle because this side's thicker than this side. I don't have one that's even across. So I grabbed a couple of my spoons, and this one's too fat and this one's too thin. I want something to fit down in there really good. So I have this, I have this thick piece of plate here that was over my scrap bin, and it ended up being the exact thickness I needed for that. Like, it fits perfectly. I'm not sure what thickness this is. I haven't measured it, but anyway, I started out right here, a little 2-inch spot, and it's making it really nice and straight. I'm just using a, you know, Harbor Freight dolly here, just the flat-ended one. There it is, straightened back out, and it looks really nice. It doesn't have to be perfect, you know what I mean? But that is really, really nice down through there. So I've got a spot here that's kind of pulled out a little bit, so I am going to try to, I think I'm going to overbend this so I'll have a little bit more room. And I'm just using some, these are like some little pliers. They're flat-ended, but they don't have any teeth in there. They're nice and smooth so they don't mar up the metal. Anyway, I'm going to bend that back a little bit so I can get down in here with the, get the dolly back there and try to work that a little bit. have the correct dolly for that, or hammer, I mean. I have it, but it's in there, long ways away. So let's see what else I can do to rig it up here. All right, I got a spot here that's pulled out, so I'm going to try to get this out here. So I got a spot right here that this lip is actually pulled back, so I'm going to try. I'm actually going to go ahead and fix the flange, and then I'll go back and try to use this as a tool to pull it back. All right, hold that thought. All right, so here's the flange after I hammered dolly in it. It's nice, and there's always a notch here for water run out and stuff. And one up here too, but anyway, it's pretty straight. And then this is where the tail pan stops, and then this is part of the inner quarter. But anyway, this bottom of this one's actually got some rust holes in it, but I'm not using this. So all I really care about is the tail pan, even though I went through and hammered dolly that out a little bit, but that'll work. It, you know, it's not absolute perfection, but it looks better, and you know, it would be ready for paint. And I usually blast all this with the blaster, just that channel down in there, because I can DA sand all this, but I'll blast all that just to get all the, you know, the rust and all that crap out of there. Here it is, all naked now. So the frame is not 100% mint. It does have a couple little issues, but I'll take them. They're very easy fixes, and I've actually seen it a couple of times that I've had to repair them before, so I'll run you through it. But I mean, overall, the frame rails and everything's really nice on this car. This frame is fantastic. This is a really nice, you know, frame that's not all twisted up, bent up, kinked up, or anything like that. So it's going to be the perfect chassis to put under that two-door sedan. In case you guys don't know and you're new to the Tri-5 scene, the 55 and 56 frames are the same. 57 had different frame horns on the front. I think they'll bolt right under there, but the frame horns are different. So I don't know how that'll interact with your bumper brackets and all that. So this is a 55 four-door frame, and this is what's left of the four-door that Randy brought me for the parts car. I've got it removed. I ended up plasma cutting off. I've got the whole quarter panel off the car. I cut the whole rear piece of the tail pan out so I can go back and strategically drill those spot welds out. I was having a hard time seeing them up here on the top side, the spot welds. I was going to drill them while it was on the car, and I can kind of make them out a little bit. But I run my wire wheel over this, and you can really see them. They're on the very edge right there. So I'm going to go ahead and drill it from the back side with an 1/8 inch bit right in the middle of the spot welds. And then I'm going to flip it over and drill it out with a 1/4 inch. And then that will be my new holes to plug weld to the new underbody floor pan. So this does have some issues. It's got a little hole here. It's got a hell of a little kinky ding right there. So once I get it separated and this is by itself, I'm going to try to hammer and dolly that back out. I've got the brace removed. I kind of knocked a big hole in it right there. There was actually 2 spot welds in that one and only 1 in this one. So anyway, I kind of ripped a little bit of metal, so I'm going to have to go back and hammer and dolly that a little bit, and then probably weld it, and then grind both sides, and then go back and drill a hole and plug weld that on there. This lip right here is pretty bent. That was just the way it was. Somebody's kind of got into that with something. There's a little bitty hole here, and there's a little bitty hole right here. So I'm hoping, you know, I don't mind going in and drilling these out a little bit to get good metal and then re-welding it and then grinding it. It's not that hard of a job. I just hope there's not a whole lot more of it once I get it off there. But you know, these things are over $100 for a new one, and I could use $100 for something else, you know, and I'll just spend the extra time and labor on it because my labor's free on my own car, you know what I mean? But that'll make a good donor. Now back to the chassis. So the car has taken a side impact at the edge of the bumper. Somebody's bumped it, and this is what usually happens. This has kind of been in right here just a little bit, and this is where your side brace for your rear bumper bolts to the side of your bumper. Does the car have the bumper on it? It does not. Anyway, you have this kind of rig here, you know, but anyway, there's a little bumper brace that goes on there, and if the car ever gets bumped in the side by another vehicle, it usually kind of bends these in a little bit. So this has been in just a little bit. So I'm going to try to use the oval hole in the back and a long punch or a steel bar or something on the back side, and I'm just going to hammer the crap out of it this way and then try to get it straightened out. If I can't do it, I'm just going to cut it out right here. This face side, just cut a square out right here. Pull this back out, lay it on the ground, hammer it back straight, and then stick it back up and weld it back in. So this one over here, I'm just going to replace it. It's the same way, but it's actually a little worse. So the bolt has been pulled through, and it's been in pretty bad right here. So I'm just going to cut it, you know, like right along right here, and over and up and there, and pull that off, and then just make a new one out of the same gauge metal and stick back in there, butt weld it, grind it, and you'll never be able to tell it was in there. So otherwise, pretty happy, man. Pretty common spot on these cars. If somebody ever hooked a chain to them, they usually hook a chain in these ovals right here, and this does have a little bitty folded in spot right here, just barely. So I'm going to hammer this one back out. This one's nice. This one hasn't had any damage done to it. I'll go look at the front. That one's really nice. This one's pulled, so this one I'll have to work on a little bit. So somebody, it looked like they hooked a chain hook on here and pulled it. Like I'm thinking they was trying to pull it sideways to get it away from another car or a tree or something, and they had that lifted up. Well, it stretched that metal really bad, so I put a slice in it a long time ago, and I was going to try to hammer this back flat and then go back and weld it, because when metal's stretched like that and you try to hammer it back, you've got too much metal because it's stretched it out. So if you put a relief cut in it, by the time you hammer it, it's usually touching, or you have to go back and slice it again. But at this point, since I've got to find some metal for that back there, I think I'm just going to cut this top little square out and just put a new patch in there. That'll be just as easy, you know what I mean? I still got to cut and weld. It's pretty much the same thing. But this frame is nice, man. So thank you again, Randy. I've thanked him a million times. I could thank him a million more. This was this four-door parts car is this was the necessary needed parts. The car, the four-door, mega necessary to give that car new life. So everybody, you know, not everybody, a lot of people were asking me, why didn't I just build the four-door? I'm already building a four-door for my wife, guys. I don't need to build another four-door. I'm trying to recreate a car that my brother had in high school when I was a little kid. He's 8 years older than me, and I loved riding in his car, especially when he was going through the gears in that 4-speed. I loved that car. I remember as a kid, I wanted to buy his car. I wanted it for my first car, but you know, I was too young. But so that's the chassis. The leaf springs, I looked them over. They don't have deep grooves wore in them, so these leaf springs would be ideal to rebuild. I have a video in my playlist on Tri-5 Tech Tips, I think, on rebuilding these. They might, you know, that video might be in my wife's build of her 4-door. I'm pretty sure I'll probably put that in Tech Tips because it's a very long video, but there is so much good, useful information for the budget at-home guys to make your leaf springs ride really nice again. Lots of useful information. So, well, I took a wire wheel to the old shocks here, cleaned up the threads and the bolts, and then sprayed some PB Blaster. I'm hoping those will come off without breaking. And if anybody needs some good used shocks, hit me up. I've got some sweet ones for you here. I'll even give you a discount, like a Sunday price discount, be like $299.99, one day only. So hit me up in the email if you want those. The other thing that was bad, which is it's common, I've seen this before, this bracket here for the emergency brake cable was actually lifted up a little bit. So probably maybe a forklift going under there and lifting it up or something. The reason I say forklift is when I was taking the cowl and the rockers loose on this car, there's 2 areas on the rockers on the passenger side where you could see the forks from a forklift had lifted it up and crushed it. So that's why I'm saying forklift. But anyway, this weld right here, this little spot weld was broken loose and this whole bracket was lifted up. It stayed attached up here, and then I just hammered it back down and hit on that. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to hammer on this some more, obviously, but anyway, I'm going to put a really small self-driller in there, and I'm going to put a little stitch on this side, and then pull the self-driller out and plug weld it. So that it's not like it has a bunch of tension on it. It's just for emergency brake cable, but if you never knew how your emergency brake cable worked, for new cables, they go on like that. And you can't really use these old ones, man. They're going to be all frayed out, and like that one. They're going to be all frayed out and stuff. These boots, you know, it's to keep water out of from getting in that cable and corroding them and sticking them and stuff. The boots are going to be rotten like that and everything. So it's best to just get new cables and just replace it all. But this bracket's good. I did remove the rest of the fuel line and the brake line. I've got all these old clips here that I'm going to remove. And then I need to, at one point, get in here with the garden hose, and I'm just going to kind of tilt this thing up on its side and try to get some of this crap out of this frame. It's full of dirt and dust, and it's the perfect place for mice. It's like little tunnels and stuff. There's even some nuts in here. So anyway, I usually clean them out pretty good. I blow them out first with air, and then I go back and use the garden hose and just flush it out real good. But that frame's nice, man. I'll take it. It's going to be a really nice one. I rolled it out here in the grass a little bit, and I used my little portable blaster, and I went through and blasted around this bracket real good so I can get a nice weld on there and a few more areas. Now, I've done this on the last several Tri-5s that I've built, and I'll explain it again. This is your rear rubber brake hose bracket on your frame. It goes here. So you have to have a flex line on your rear end because the rear end moves. I always drill the spot welds out on these and pull it off and turn it upside down and put it in the exact same spot on this side. Then you have to drill your spot welds on this bracket and move it to over here. But I like having the brake lines on the left side of the frame because your brake booster and master cylinder is on the left side of the car, unless it's a right-hand drive car. So I like to run my brake lines down this side. That way you don't have a brake line, a double brake line. If you're running a dual reservoir master cylinder, you will have 2 brake lines running together across the frame up there in the front. So anyway, I like to just simplify it and run it down this side of the car. But that is what I'm going to do. So it'll be another modification. Now, when I done Steve's car, I did some rock shields, because every time, just about every time I've taken a car off a frame, there's always been some big rocks stuck up in here. And I take sheet metal that's about the same thickness as the frame rail, and I'll cut it and just kind of put a few stitches, you know, here, there, a few there, up on the top, maybe a couple here. I won't fully weld it, but it's not going to vibrate or rattle if it's pretty thick metal. And I welded on there, and that's basically a gravel guard or a rock guard to keep anything from flying up in there and getting stuck. And then, you know, going down the highway at 65 miles an hour and hitting something in the road, or going over a bridge and, you know, jarring everything, and maybe a rock come up off there and get under the, out from under there and go in somebody's windshield, basically is what I'm trying to say. I'm just going to basically put the rock guards on here as well. It's just a nice little quick and easy upgrade. I think I saved the template for that. If not, I can make another one out of poster board. It's not a big deal. But I blasted a few other spots on the frame, and I'm going to go ahead and weld them. So the factory didn't weld the very back section here, and this weld doesn't even really look like it's hardly welded. And same thing over here. They missed a spot here. So I'm going to go in here and just do a little stitch all the way down on that. And then I removed the muffler bracket, and I drilled into the frame just a little bit when I was drilling out the spot welds. So I'm going to go in and fill that up with weld, that way I can grind it flush. And same thing on the exhaust bracket. When I was drilling it out, I drilled into the frame a little bit, so I'm going to go back and weld it, fill those full of weld. I'm going to go ahead and weld this up and that up. That one, that one, that one, that one. There's a lot of unused holes in this frame, so I got holes in the frame up here. This is for the standard linkage stuff, so I've got a little work to do on this one, but I'm going to go ahead and weld all this crap up. You don't want to weld these three up, that's for your steering box. But anyway, there's two more on this side, and then I kind of blast around here just so I can kind of see what I'm doing here to remove the remnants of that. But that's what's going to happen today, is just kind of prepping the frame out, getting it ready. So I definitely need to get the rear brake hose bracket off and get it flipped. And then as soon as I get it ready and cleaned up and ready to be plug welded on, I'm going to weld everything else up. All right, guys, this is how I remove the mounts. I mean, it's a pretty basic deal, but it is a little time consuming, especially, you know, if you're trying to go slow and try to make it look good and not mess up the frame. I used a cut-off wheel on my grinder, and I cut right along the edge there of this piece right here. Basically cut down in there, and I cut where I felt like it was almost all the way through. I didn't want to go into, you know, mar in the frame, which if you do get into the frame, all you gotta do is go back and put a little weld on it and grind it back smooth. But anyway, I cut it because you can always cut it almost all the way through and then just put a pair of pliers on it, sit there and break it off. I tapped it with a hammer and it fell off, so that was kind of nice. Now if you notice on the sides here, they've got a spot weld right there, spot weld there, spot weld there and there, and then they put some little stitches out here on the ends. So I kind of followed the line of the bracket. This one looked like they melted in pretty far, so that's kind of why I cut it at an angle there. But anyway, I cut down in a little bit on both sides, and then I'll go in with my drill with a 1/4 inch drill bit, and I'll drill this pretty deep. Try not to go all the way through, but I drill it pretty deep to about the thickness of that, what I think is by looking in there when I pull the bit out. And then I'll go back with 5/16 and make it a little bit bigger. And then I'll take a chisel and get it up in there, because this is bent, so the backside is curved. So once you got the main piece cut off, you can put this back there on that curved piece, and it'll kind of pop it off there a little easier instead of trying to go on the sharp side here. So anyway, this side I've done the same thing. I sliced this off, knocked it off, and then I drilled into it, which it went through. But I always go back and weld these spots back up and then go back and grind them flush, and I'll have to hit these little nick marks here where I got into it. But anyway, this is a little bit visible. If somebody's looking with the hood up, you can kind of see back up in there a little bit. You know, you really have to look back up in there, but I just want to make sure that it's pretty nice. I mean, I'm building the car and I try to do the best I can when I do something, so I'm going to try to get this off as cleanly as possible. Now the lower is always tough unless the frame's upside down or tilted up on its side. So I think what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm just going to cut it off a little bit closer and leave it. And then that way when I go back to restore the chassis, because I'll have it upside down and, you know, flipped up on its side and all kinds of stuff, and I'll have better access to that instead of laying on my back down there and all this mess trying to get that off there. So I'm just going to cut it a little bit closer because I do want to run my I kind of wanted to run my fuel line and everything and get it all. I've got to drill and tap the frame for those clamps, so I kind of wanted to get that all base set. I need to do the brake lines as well, but I don't have any brake line. I need to go to the parts store and get a couple of really long sticks. But anyway, that's how I remove them. All right, so I'll put a grinding stone on, and I'm going to grind these down, not all the way, because I don't want that grinding stone getting into the main frame rail. I just want to grind that down pretty far, all this big stuff hanging off. And then I'm going to switch to a flap wheel. I think it's a 40 grit or a 36, and then finish it out. So I hate grinding, but it's just part of it. All right, end of the night, still cleaning up. I went in and I was basically seeing what was for dinner, and I decided I'd go ahead and check my emails and drink me a Gatorade while I took a break, we'll say. Anyway, I had several emails in there, and I've actually got one from a guy that started a YouTube channel probably about, I don't know, 7-8 months ago. He had emailed me and asked me, you know, how hard is it to do, and do you like it, and all this kind of stuff. I don't want to say his name because he's been reaching out, but anyway, I told him, yeah, it's pretty great. But anyway, he has the email that he sent me. He's having trouble with a toxic viewer, leaving rude comments on every one of his videos, and said he's pretty much making a butt out of himself. And he doesn't really know what to do, so I told him to hide user from channel. And I thought I would go ahead and make this video because I know there's other guys that have YouTube channels that are pretty new, and maybe they don't know that you can delete toxic comments. You know, if you got somebody that comes in there and they're saying stuff that, you know, they're just giving you personal attacks or something, you can, the 3 little dots beside their comment, you can click on that, and I always report them if it's pretty bad, and you can report them and then hit the 3 dots again and then click hide user from channel. And what YouTube allows us as creators to do to keep our, you know, our comment section clean is you can hide the user from the channel. And what that means, they can still watch the video and you still get paid for them watching the video. Basically, you get paid for their view and also their subscription, I guess. But anyway, they have no idea that they've been blocked. You're basically banning them from commenting, and no one can see that comment except the person that typed it out. So it's kind of cool because they don't have a notification that says they've been banned or anything like that. So you know, if you got somebody that's, you know, just rude or saying something that, you know how some people can get, I just report them if it's bad, and then I put hide user from channel, and that pretty much takes care of it, and no one else will ever see their comments. They can comment, but he's the only one, or they are the only one that can see it. So I think that's pretty cool. So that's how you do it. It's just 3 dots beside the comment and hide user from channel, and none of your viewers, subscribers, anybody will see his comment. So I think that's pretty cool. All right, it is starting to get dark on me, so I got to clean up my mess. I went ahead and removed all the steering linkage off of this, because without the steering box, the tie rod over here just, you know, would go down, and one wheel would go crooked and the other one would be straight, and it was just kind of a pain in the butt. So I removed it all. I took some tubing that I had. It was actually 2 pieces. I had to weld them together, but I found some bolts, and they just happened to be metric, so it was the perfect use for them, because I don't like to use metric if I don't have to. But anyway, my box of bolts, spare stuff, I had 2 metric bolts, and they fit in there, not tight, but they go in there and there's not a lot of slack, and they had nuts on them. So I used a hammer and flattened down the ends enough to capture the side of the head of the bolt, and then I welded it. And then I've done the same thing on this one. So basically there's a bolt head welded to the end of that with the threads going down, and I've got the nut on there, but it's not tight. So it's, you know, got enough wiggle room where it'll turn. So now when I turn a wheel, the other one will turn with it. So that's kind of nice. And I can use that on other project, Tri-5, so that worked out pretty good. So I don't have to fight this thing. There for the first couple of times I kept taking the steering box on and off, so now I don't have to do that. I'll just stick that in there. I made one of these a long time ago, and I don't know where it is. It must be on one of them G-bodies or something. Maybe I modified it, I don't remember, but it's not in the garage anymore, so I went ahead and made a new one. But that strings all the way across, and you turn this wheel, and that one turns with it. So all I did was set the wheels to where they looked pretty much like they were straight with the back wheels, and then I set it up and cut it to fit and welded it up. But I am done for the day, other than cleaning up and all that good stuff. But I had sanded where the body mounts go, and that way when I put my new urethane mounts on here, they don't get rust stains on the anodized hardware, because I do plan on pulling the car all back apart later. But for now I just want to try to get it to where it'll move in the yard under its own power. But I went ahead, where I sanded those clean, I shot some Sim etching primer, just aerosol, on the bare metal stuff, and I shot it all over everything I welded and ground and all that. I just shot it on there because, you know, it'll keep it from getting bad rusty, although the frame's already rusty. But at least, you know, when I go back to sand wire wheel and everything the frame down, because I doubt I have it blasted, I'll probably do it like my wife's 4-door. I ended up going over the whole car by hand, and then all the hard to reach areas I used my little portable blaster, and it ended up working out pretty good. It took several days to do it, but it, you know, more time than money type of deal. Having a frame blasted is several $100, and I'd rather spend the several $100 on other stuff that's needed. So with that, I am out for the night. So this was the weekend progress on the 2-door post project that Randy gave me. These cars came from Texas, and this chassis is from the 4-door that he brought for parts, and that's what's left of the 4-door right there. I've got to finish cutting it up, but it's going under that. And in case you guys don't know, the 2-door sedan and the 4-door sedan chassis are the same chassis. 55 and 6 is the same. 57 has different frame horns at the front, but I think the rest of the frame's the same. I think they are different from hardtop only because they have 2 extra body mounts welded on them right about in this general area. And if you have a bent hardtop frame and all you can find is sedan chassis, get the sedan chassis and take off your hardtop mounts and weld them right on. No big deal. I've got a 4-door frame under mine, and there's a 4-door frame under Steve's as well. His is from a 56, mine's from a 55. So I will tell you, in 56, they changed the shackle hangers. They're wider on one end. And I'm not 100% sure, I've never read why they done that. I can only assume that it's probably for less of this side-to-side movement. I'm assuming. But anyway, they changed the design for some reason. But if you get a 55 and all you can find is a 56, that might be a better deal for you. Then you'll have the updated shackle hangers. And again, I'm not sure why they do that, but I think this whole rig right here is wider and it tapers down skinnier to go to the leaf spring. And the only thing I could think of, the reason they did that was to keep the shackle flex from side to side down. So I don't know for 100%. Maybe somebody can type in the comments. That's just what I assume that they did, but I think it's kind of neat that Steve's got that updated deal in his car. Actually, we might be able to see it on his car. Maybe. Yeah, see how much wider those are, if you can see that. These wires are they're just laying here for now because this is taillight wiring that I have to wire up, so don't think I've got wires just hanging across the frame there. So I am going to call it a night, guys, and I do appreciate you watching.